Well, good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to share this quick video update and share with you what was my final projection for the 2024 election versus the actual results. Now, you see, this is the map that I had a week before the election day. I had Trump winning all 7 key battlegrounds by pretty much a tilt to a lean margin. I did have North Carolina about a 2-point victory for Trump. Georgia, I had roughly about half a point to a point victory for Trump. So I'll reflect that on this map. You can see there Georgia in the tilt Republican category. North Carolina I had in the I believe in the tilt Republican category, about 1.5 2 points. Arizona, I had Arizona in the lean Republican column, and Nevada I had in the tilt Republican column. And then in the Rust Belt, I had Wisconsin in the tilt Republican column. Michigan I had in the lean Democratic column. I predicted that Kamala Harris would win Michigan by about 2 to 3 points. And then I had Pennsylvania in the tilt Republican column, with Trump winning by about half a point to maybe 1 point. So that is the map that I had a week before the election, compared to the actual election results, 312 to 226 in favor of Trump. And of course, I was quite skeptical of the Rust Belt, because I had mentioned a week before the election that the Rust Belt always tends to vote together. However, I thought that the last time that had happened, where the 3 Rust Belt states did not vote together where all 3 of them did not vote together, was 1988 prior, and that was the last time that happened, 1988. So the trend did continue with the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all voting together. So that streak has remained alive since Bill Clinton back in 1992. And so that was my map a week before the election versus the actual outcome. So now, for some major election forecasters, they had predicted quite a few of them had predicted a couple of days before the election that Kamala Harris would win Wisconsin as well as Michigan, but Donald Trump would just win Pennsylvania and the Rust Belt. Some of those same forecasters had Kamala Harris winning Nevada, but Trump winning Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. And a week before the election, I had predicted Donald Trump would win Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, but lose Michigan, but sweep the Sun Belt states of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. So unless I am missing something, it's pretty crazy to think that I nailed exactly right 1 week before the election. I accurately predicted Donald Trump winning Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. My only miss in this 2024 election, and remember, this was my very first election predicting the potential outcome, and it's crazy to think about that being my first time that I accurately predicted 6 out of the 7 swing states going to Trump. My only miss was Michigan, which Michigan is the most liberal of the Rust Belt trio, so I was a little skeptical on Trump's chances there. I was pretty confident of Trump's chances in the Sun Belt, especially with the early polling that we got. But in terms of the Rust Belt states, I thought maybe Wisconsin and Pennsylvania would be just a little bit closer than what they were. We did have in Wisconsin, Trump won by, I believe, 0.8. I predicted roughly about 1 to 1.5 in Wisconsin, because we know Wisconsin always underestimates Trump. So I did not do that bad in Wisconsin. Michigan, of course, I predicted Harris by about 1 to 1.5, and Trump ended up winning Michigan by 1.7, so I was a little off there. Pennsylvania, I had predicted Trump would win by about half a point to 1 point. As it stands now, he has won Pennsylvania by 2 points, so I wasn't that far off in Pennsylvania. Georgia, I had predicted Trump would win roughly by about 1 to 1.5. He ended up winning Georgia by, I believe, 2.1 or 2.3, somewhere in there. So I really wasn't that far off in Georgia either. North Carolina, I predicted 1.5 to 2 points. Trump took North Carolina by 3.3. Essentially, exactly his winning margin in 2016 against Hillary Clinton when he won North Carolina by 3.6. So in North Carolina, I said about 1.5, 2 points. So I was a little bit off in North Carolina. Arizona, I thought Trump would win by about 2 to 3 points. As it stands now, he has won Arizona by 5.5, which, of course, I was a little bit skeptical on Arizona being that much. Of course, Atlas Intel, the most accurate pollster in 2020, they predicted in their final poll in Arizona, Trump plus 5.5 was the final outcome. So Atlas Intel, believe it or not, was spot on pretty much in all of the swing states, and they were also spot on in the popular vote. They predicted Trump plus 2 in the popular vote pretty much the whole entire cycle since Kamala Harris entered the race on the Democratic side in late July. So Atlas Intel literally nailed this one. Of course, you had some margins in some of the deep blue states. New Mexico, Rasmussen had Harris plus 5. She won New Mexico by 5.1. So Rasmussen accurately nailed New Mexico for Kamala Harris. In Minnesota, Rasmussen said Kamala Harris would win by 3. She won it by 4. So Rasmussen pretty accurate in Minnesota as well for Harris. And then in New Hampshire, Rasmussen said Harris would win New Hampshire. And some of Rasmussen's polls, they said New Hampshire would be about 3 points for Kamala Harris. She won New Hampshire by 4. So, and in Virginia, Rasmussen said Harris would win Virginia by 4. She won it by 5. So in New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, Rasmussen was actually pretty much spot on with those margins in those deep blue states. So that was pretty impressive by Rasmussen, and especially Atlas Intel. Atlas Intel was accurate in 2020. They definitely proved themselves accurate again in 2024. And I will end this video by saying that regarding the popular vote, this was the first time since George Bush Jr. in 2004 that Donald Trump won, or that the Republican candidate won the popular vote and the presidency. First time since 2004, George Bush Jr. Also the first time since 2004, as well with George Bush Jr., that the Republican candidate was able to flip Nevada. So that was a historic flip for Donald Trump. And also, this was the biggest electoral landslide win since George Bush Sr. in 1988. Now, granted, the winning margin in the Electoral College map was not as big as what it was in 1988, but still the biggest landslide since that year. And it's kind of interesting because on the Democratic side, this was the most radical left ticket since John Dukakis in 1988, and 36 years later, it was the most radical left ticket on the Democratic side. The Republican candidate won in 1988, despite the most radical left ticket, and 36 years later, 2024, we had the same exact result. So I thought that was really interesting as well. So there was a lot of historic events that happened during this election. And finally, we saw in several deep blue states, Donald Trump in New Jersey, Biden won it by 15 points in 2020. Donald Trump only lost New Jersey by 4. He swung New Jersey 11 points to the right in 2024. New York, Joe Biden carried it by 23 points in 2020. Hillary Clinton by 29 points in 2016. Donald Trump only lost New York by 11. So in the span of 8 years, an 18-point shift to the right in New York. Absolutely amazing, amazing numbers there as well. And in deep blue Illinois, a state that has not gone red since George Bush Sr. in 1988, Donald Trump so far has only lost Illinois by about 8 points. That is a 10-point shift from 2016 and 2020 when Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden carried that state by 18 and 19 points respectively. So it's really, really remarkable how Donald Trump was able to win this historic election in 2024, not just in the landslide that he did, but in the way that he did it, with some of these deep blue state margins being way closer than what they have ever been in America modern day history. So absolutely amazing, amazing stuff this year in the 2024 election. It was great being a part of it, and I hope you all enjoyed my analysis over the last month. And as I end this video, talking about with recapping this election. I hope that you all enjoyed it. It was absolutely amazing being a part of it, being able to make my predictions, and then, of course, recording this recap video, sharing with you my final predictions a week before the election to the outcome that we have seen post-election. It's been absolutely incredible. So blessed to have been a part of this. And please like this video or subscribe to my channel if you would like me to do these videos again in 2028 and even beyond that. Any feedback via the subscribe button or like button is greatly appreciated. And again, thank you all so much for being part of these videos on this channel over the last month here in the 2024 election. Have a great weekend.